Hey guys, welcome back to Fabscaped. In this video, we will be talking about making complex shapes, and this is part one. We have a few videos coming up on making complex shapes. So, in this video, we'll talk about three things, three different tools. We will talk about our scribble tool or our making lines tool. We will talk about our warp tool, and then we will talk about our point tool or edit nodes tool. Um, so let's get right to it. Um, our scribble tool is locating, of course, as all the other tools are, in the left hand column where with all of our drawing tools. So we're going to go ahead, we will click one of these. You can just see it has a pin on it, or this either any one of these is that could be classified as a scribble or a line drawing tool. So depending on what kind of shape you're trying to draw, you would use any of these lines. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the first one, draw freehand lines. And of course, immediately as we click it, we're going to get some options up here. We'll get the mode. I really don't see the difference between these two modes as far as working with Fab. You're still able to draw basically virtually the same shapes. I'll show you in a minute. Um, and we have our smoothing right here. And this right here is kind of essential, especially if you're trying to make nice smooth looking shapes and stuff. And you know how your mouse will jitter up and down, and this will sort of correct that for you. And then we'll have some other cool options as far as how the shape is actually made. So let's get right to it. I'm going to select none. So this right here will, and I'll show you what happens when the shape is none. So therefore, we're going to go ahead. We have no smoothing on here. Let's draw a line. Let's draw something. You can see how you can see the line being drawn, and then once I click out, you can see that it's kind of rough looking, sort of woolly lines everywhere. Even though I was trying to draw straight. Hey, I'll try again. Let's see if I can draw sort of a straight line. Try to draw sort of a straight line, but you see, it's not as straight as I might want it. Now, this right here is where smoothing comes in. I'm going to delete that guy right there. I'm going to delete this guy too. So, actually, I won't delete him. I'll leave him there, and we can use him for comparison. I'm going to go back to my tool, and I'm going to put a smoothing on here. So therefore, let's put it about 40. And this here will sort of correct my my jitters to make my shape a little smoother. And you can edit this. You can change the threshold if you want it smoother or not as smooth. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to make sort of the same kind of shape as I made before. This time with smoothing. And you see what it does. This shape that I just made is a lot more. It's a lot smoother, a lot more refined, well refined than the last shape that I made. If I were to up the threshold as far as smoothing goes, you can get something looks even smoother. If I do something like this, it's all going all over the place. It makes it nice and smooth. The lines are straight. Everything is sort of contoured nicely. Now, this shape tool, this over here is pretty fun to use, especially if you're trying to draw pictures, or if you're a designer, if you're, let's say if you're making jewelry or something, or making cool table legs or something. You can use some of these options. So let's say if I click triangle in and I try to draw something, it's going to give me a triangle that starts the base will sort of start where I start my drawing. It's going to continue and it's going to taper off where I finish. And of course, it's not a triangle, but it tapers towards the point where I finish. If I click triangle out, it's going to taper away from the point where I finish. So you can see this is sort of the same kind of drawing that I just did there, except that it tapers to the point where I start my drawing. And you can stop that. And then ellipse sort of makes everything sort of like a big chubby oval sort of thing. You can see the thing kind of stuff that it does. This would be nice if you're drawing, let's say cat eyes or snake eyes or something like that, and you can see sort of that kind of look right there. Or if you're drawing some sort of other object. Also, from clipboard, this is kind of cool, especially if you're actually trying to make solid objects. So if I go ahead and I click, if I just start to draw something, you can see how all these are sort of hollow. However, if I do this, if I let it go, it's going to fill it in, and it's going to sort of create a straight line from the point where I start to the point where I end, to the point where I end, and everything's going to be filled in right there. So that's my this is my scribble tool, or I draw freehand lines, and you can use the other tools like this one. This drawing lines. This actually gives you curves, and you can actually set sort of curves and stuff like that. So let's say if I were to click, if you just click and release and click again, you'll end up just making a polygon, an irregular polygon that you can make. And I'm still in triangle, and I'm going to put this back to none. So I can make whatever I'm trying to make right there. However, if I want to actually give sort of curves and stuff like that, I can click, and then as I click my next time, I'm going to click and hold, and then drag. So actually, after the next one, click. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong setting. So there we go. We want this setting, this mode right here. One of these modes right here, which will actually give us that. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag, and this is going to give me sort of a curve, and I can edit the strength of that curve. I can make more curves and do kind of cool things. So this is nice if you want to draw like this, but of course you can use different ways to do sort of virtually the same thing as far as drawing. And now I have my shape, and it looks sort of like a French curve set or something like that. Alrighty, and then if we have our calligraphy, this is kind of fun as well. So as you click that, you get all kinds of options up here as far as the width of the pen, the angle that the pen is at, and all kinds of different other options. So if I were to click right here, I can start to draw and create all kinds of shapes like that. The next tool we'll talk about is indeed, I'm not going to delete that, is indeed our warp tool. Now this warp tool is pretty fun. It's actually the third tool from the top, and what this is used to do is to edit already made objects. So let's say if I have all these objects right here, I can warp them into doing making all kinds of other shapes. So if I click my warp tool, first what I have to do before I click my warp tool, I have to select some objects that I want to be warped. So let's say I want this half of, or not quite half, or a little more than half of these objects right here. I want to warp these in some sort of way. So I'm going to click them. Then I'm going to go to my warp tool, and I can select different modes. Let's say I want to sort of move them in any direction. I can just go ahead and I can click this mode right here, and I can just go ahead and click in, and it'll just sort of scatter them all over the place. This is kind of cool if you're drawing pictures. And you can see how it only moves objects that I have selected, because all these objects right here are staying still. I can also use this other option, which actually pulls them towards the center of whatever I'm making. And this is another option that you can use. And this actually doesn't change the size or the actual shape of the individual objects, but it just sort of adds sort of relationships between them and makes them interact with each other in certain ways. Then we have this other tool. It moves them in random directions, pushes them all over the place, just sort of randomizing, sort of mixing them up around here. Also, you have our this other tool that sort of makes them disappear, which is kind of cool. Makes them smaller and makes them sort of dissolve into nothingness. And then, of course, and now these tools, they sort of work when you have objects that are if you have several objects. But this tool actually can work with just one object. And there are some objects, some tools in this warp tool that have to work with multiple objects that are involved. Some of them only have to work with one object. I'll give it a case in point. So let's say if I'm going to go back to my select tool, and just going to click this big circle, this big oval right there. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to edit him using my warp tool. So one thing that I could do is I could use this pinch tool. What this pinch tool is going to do is sort of going to pinch him. In fact, I'm actually going to draw some other shape. How about we draw another shape right here to edit? Let's draw this shape right here. Now we're going to click that shape, and we're going to go to our tool right here. We're going to sort of click. Let's click this one right here. So we're going to click it, and now with this warp tool, just sort of pushes all of and adds different, just pushes all my edges all over the place, and it just adds different geometries to the shape that I'm making. So this is kind of a cool way to sort of sculpt what you're doing. And then we have some other ones. We have the shrink tool. The shrink tool can sort of dissolve away and different objects and stuff like that. And we have all kinds of other ones. I'm not going to play with all of them right now. So these are some options that we have with our edit, our warp tool that we're going to use. Okay, last but not least, we're going to use our edit nodes tool. So this is actually the second object for actually the second object from the top in our tool box over here on the left hand column. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click that. And what this actually does, it actually shows you all of the little points that actually make up this shape. And you know how, since we're working with vectors, each point actually connects to other points, versus how in pixels you just have different lots and lots of pixels and lots of little squares on your screen that are different colors that sort of give the perception of a shape. But these are actually points that are sort of connected by sort of mathematical formulas. So now that we're in here, we can there's some different options that we can have. Of course, at the top, I'm just going to use the one that's already selected, and I can click and drag my different points to actually sort of create different geometries right here. And I can, since I have these are sort of little thresholds of power and sort of weight that these points have an influence they have on the formulation of the shape. So I can click all these things and make the shape all kinds of different geometries and give it all kinds of different geometries. So these are our three tools that we're talking about in this video. We talked about how to use our edit nodes tool. Just now we talked about how to use the warp tool to make shapes interact with each other and to sort of change the way a shape looks and sort of sculpt our shape. And then we talked about, actually in the first time, we talked about our scribble tool or our line tools and how we can use those to create kind of cool geometries. This is the end of this video. In the next video, we'll talk more about making complex shapes. I'll see you then.